All right, so this is going to be my first video I have ever made. I can definitely improve, but let me know how it goes. This is the theory of the third man. If you don't know what the third man is, it's where you're about to die and you have a guide that brings you out of your situation. Um, they walk you through everything, they show you what to do, where to go. All right, so the thing people keep reporting when they're about to die, not metaphorically, actually about to die. It happens to people who are completely alone. Mountaineers caught in whiteouts, explorers freezing to death, sailors lost at sea, pilots going down with no hope of rescue. And the strangest part is, they don't panic. Not the way you would expect them. Instead, they describe a calm presence, someone nearby, not visible in a clear way, not a ghost standing there waving, more like awareness, companionship. They say it feels external, like another person has joined them. This presence talks to them, sometimes out loud, sometimes not. It gives instructions, simple ones. Keep moving, sit there, go that way. And the people who survive swear this wasn't imagination. They weren't delirious, they weren't religious, they weren't expecting anything supernatural. They just weren't alone anymore. What makes this unsettling isn't one story, it's how consistent the stories are. Different continents, different languages, different eras, same descriptions. The mountaineer, Sir Ernest Shackleton, wrote about it during his Arctic expedition. He was walking for days, half starved, convinced a fourth person was with him. Everyone in the group felt it. No one could see it. Modern climbers report the same thing. So do soldiers under extreme stress. So do people pulled from plane wreckage who swear someone kept them alive. And then there's a detail that always gets glossed over. The presence disappears the moment the danger passes. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. Psychologists have tried to explain this as a split consciousness, the brain creating a second self to manage survival when the primary self is overwhelmed. The military has studied it quietly, not to prove it's mystical, but because if the brain can generate a guide under extreme stress, that changes how resilience works, how survival works. But here's the thing, hallucinations are usually chaotic. They're inconsistent, they reflect personal fears, beliefs, and culture. This doesn't. People describe the same calm, the same tone, the same role. A guide, not a savior, not a god, just someone who shows up when you're not supposed to make it. No one agrees on what the third man is, a neurological trick, a survival mechanism, a shadow of consciousness, or something else that only appears when you're standing right on the edge. And the strangest part, most people who experience it never talk about it publicly. They say it feels too personal, like it wasn't meant to be shared, which raises an uncomfortable question. If the human mind can create something this real, why does it only appear when you're about to die? And why does it always know how to get you home? There's a pattern that starts showing up once you stop listening to vague stories and start reading survival accounts. One of the earliest well documented cases comes from 1916 during Ernest Shackleton's Imperial Transatlantic Expedition. Shackleton and two others were crossing South Georgia Island. They were exhausted, starving, and barely conscious. Later, Shackleton wrote that during the final stretch, all three men felt there was a fourth person with them. Not imagined separately, all three felt the same presence. He didn't call it a hallucination. He didn't try to explain it. He just said it was there. Fast forward to 1933, British mountaineer Frank Smythe was climbing Everest alone at over 27,000 feet. Oxygen starved and freezing, Smythe became convinced another climber was walking beside him. He remembers offering the presents a piece of mint cake from his pocket. Years later, when asked about it, Smythe said something unsettling. He wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't confused. He said the presence felt more real than the loneliness. Then there's Joe Simpson, 1985, the Peruvian Andes. Simpson's shattered his leg during a descent and was left alone in a crevice. No food, no light, no way out. He later described a calm, commanding voice that told him exactly what to do, where to crawl, and when to stop. He followed it without question. That voice led him out. Simpson survived. Once he was safe, the voice never came back. During World War II, RAF bomber pilots reported something similar. Planes going down, crews certain they wouldn't make it. Multiple after-action reports describe a calm presence in the cockpit. Not panic, not fear, just instructions. These reports weren't publicized, they were archived. Then there's 2003. Climber Aaron Ralston, trapped in a Utah canyon. He described a guiding presence during the days leading up to his escape. Not dramatic, not emotional, practical, focused. The thing that keeps showing up in these accounts isn't terror, it's clarity. Psychologists argue this is the brain creating a survival proxy, a second operator when the primary self is overwhelmed. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Hallucinations usually reflect personality, culture, belief. These don't. Same role, same calm timing. The presence always leaves the moment the survival is secure. No one stays haunted by it. No one sees it again, which raises a question that no study has answered cleanly. If this is just the brain, why does it feel separate? And if it's something else, why does it only appear when no one else can? The third man phenomena. Not a ghost story, not a miracle, just something that shows up when humans are about to be erased, and quietly make sure they aren't. Let's break down the third man phenomenon, the way researchers actually do. Because this is where it stops being a ghost story. It starts being uncomfortable. First, what it isn't. It doesn't behave like a typical hallucination. Most hallucinations are chaotic. They're fragmented. They reflect personal fears, culture, religion, and memory. Someone religious sees an angel. Someone paranoid sees threats. Someone delirious sees nonsense. The third man doesn't. The presence is almost always calm, emotionally neutral, task focused. It doesn't comfort, it doesn't judge, it doesn't explain anything. It gives instructions. That consistency is a problem for the hallucination explanation. Now, the leading scientific theory is dissociative consciousness. Under extreme stress, the brain can split executive function. Basically, your mind creates a second operator to manage the survival when your primary self is overwhelmed. Think of it like this: your normal consciousness is busy panicking, hurting, and shutting down, so the brain spins up a stripped down survival manager. No emotions, no fear, no identity, just decisions. This explains why the present feels external but isn't visual, why it sounds calm, why it knows exactly what to do. It's not creative, it's efficient. There's evidence for this in neuroscience. fMRI studies show that under extreme stress, parts of the prefrontal cortex reduce activity, while survival and motor planning regions stay active. In simple, the thinking you steps aside, something else drives. This also explains why the presence disappears instantly. Once safety returns, there is no reason for it to exist anymore. So that's the clean explanation. But here's where it starts to fray. If this is just a brain generated survival proxy, we'd expect variation, different tones, different personalities, different behaviors. We don't see that. We see the same role repeated across cultures, eras, belief systems. We also share experiences like Shackleton's expedition, where multiple people independently felt the same presence. That part shouldn't happen. Brains don't synchronize hallucinations. Another problem is timing. The third man doesn't show up during a panic. It shows up after panic fails. When people are exhausted, hypothermic, starving, near shutdown. That's when cognition is supposed to degrade, not generate a coherent guide. Then there's memory. Hallucinations usually feel unreal after the fact. People dismiss them. Third man survivors don't. They remember it as distinctly separate from themselves. Not imagined, not dreamlike. They don't romanticize it either. They describe it like an emergency tool that got put back in the box. And finally, there's the military interest. This phenomenon shows up in classified resilience studies because it suggests something unsettling, that human consciousness might not be singular, that under the right conditions, the mind can fragment into roles, not personalities, functions, a survival function that doesn't care who you are, only that you live. Which leads to the last uncomfortable question researchers avoid saying out loud. If the brain can generate a guide that feels separate, acts independently, and disappears without a trace, how do we know that that's not happening in similar ways all the time? And if it only emerges when death is certain, is it created in that moment? Or is it always there, waiting for permission to take over? That's the breakdown. No ghosts required, no angels, just the possibility that the human mind is not as singular as we pretend it is, and that something inside you knows how to survive long after you are ready to quit. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what I can do better and what the next subject should be. Have a good night, Spooky Crew.